Hello everyone and welcome to another midweek digest video here on the Kickabout Podcast channel. Thank you so much to everyone who watched the last one. It's garnered a much bigger reaction and response than I ever really thought it was going to. So massive thanks to everyone who checked it out and who commented. It seemed to resonate with a lot of West Ham fans, the points I was making, which was great. So yeah, I thought I'd come back and I'd do another one. Also, before we get going, I had a few comments last week in the video that was done that a couple of people were saying that the layout of this video and also the background music wasn't great. I know there was some audio clicking last week. That should be cleared up for this one, so hopefully that won't be a problem. But yeah, let me know. Look, I've not done these types of videos before for this channel, and the audience is very different to that of the audience that I have for my gaming videos on a separate channel, which if you want to check that out is in the link description as well. So yeah, if the music's too loud, if you don't like the music completely, if you'd rather I just got rid of it so you could just listen to my voice, then let me know. If the layout of the video is too much, if you'd rather just see a big blown up version of me, again, let me know. I personally think that this is a good balance between me, the social media stuff at the bottom, the panel on the other side there, or on that side, for the pictures and stuff to illustrate the points we're talking about, and the music in the background just provides a nice chill vibe to listen to while I'm talking. But again, I'm happy to go with you guys. If there's a general consensus that you don't like that, then I'm more than happy to remove it. Yeah, we can see. But if I don't hear anything, if nobody says anything about it, I'll assume it's okay, and I'll continue to produce videos in this way. So this video is going to be slightly different. Rather than just talking about just West Ham, and I do want to talk about them again because there's, unfortunately for West Ham fans, there's now even more to talk about and even more to discuss and digest. But I also want to talk about some other topics in football, because on the podcast, it's not a West Ham podcast, it is a footballing podcast. So I want to make sure that people are aware that when they come to this channel, it's not just going to be a avenue by which I can just vent about West Ham. As much as I'd love it to be, that's not what I want it to be. So tonight we're going to talk about a couple of topics. I'm going to timestamp the video down below if you want to skip ahead to certain points. Hope you enjoy. Let me know in the comments down below again your thoughts. Make sure you like the video if you enjoy. Make sure you subscribe as well. We got a bunch of subscribers off the last one. Amazing response, it really was. So yeah, subscribe if you enjoy the content as well. And also, I mentioned last time out, we do run a podcast every Tuesday morning. It goes live on all of your podcast apps about 6 o'clock every Tuesday morning, ready for your commute to work. So I'd love it if you gave the podcast a listen. Me, Dan and Lee have been doing it for a couple of years now, or certainly me and Dan have. And yeah, we'd love you to go and check it out and see what you think. And of course, if you like retro video games, in particular retro football games, the LMA Manager 2007 game, which was a really special game for me growing up, that reached its climax of season number 5 last Friday night. We had an absolute blast. So if you want to go and watch back the live stream or watch back any of the episodes, they're all available for you to watch on the channel as well. Okay, right, let's get into it then. Let's talk, first of all, we are going to start with West Ham. We are going to start with the continued situation, let's call it, at West Ham United. And unfortunately, despite everything that I spoke about last week, despite all of the problems, it got worse at the weekend. And I think it's beginning to really become a bigger problem, not just between the divide between the fans and the manager now, but I feel like there's becoming more of a problem between the players and the manager, the club as well, the club's relationship, which has always been pretty fractious with the West Ham fans anyway. And I believe that there is a real chance that this could get out of hand very, very quickly if results don't turn around very, very sharpish. Now, when you get spanked like we did against Arsenal, the minimum that you expect from West Ham, or from any team that gets spanked, is a response. You expect the players to turn up and put in a shift, give 100%, and even if you go out and lose, the fans and the watching media, the watching eyes of the world, want to see that you were doing absolutely everything within your power to put last week's events right, to make amends for that dismal performance at the London Stadium the week before. Unfortunately, that's not what we got. We got another very poor performance. We got put to the sword, frankly, and yet again, if it wasn't for Areola, who has been probably our player of the season so far this year, in my opinion. Him, maybe, or Emerson has also been very good. Areola kept us in the game again. I mean, how many times has he done that for us this season? He made a string of very, very good saves, but he can't keep it all out. He can't keep every single shot out of the goal. And once they got that first goal again, you could just see that it was deflating again, and that's becoming a problem as well, is that when West Ham concede, it's like this sort of, you can almost see the look of resignation on the players' faces. You can see that they're kind of like, shit, we're losing. We're not going to get this back. This is done now. And it's almost like we're a herd of, remember the old video game Lemmings where they would just walk to the edge of the cliff and just fall off? That sort of feels like what we are. It just feels like every week we turn up and we're like a herd of lemmings just walking towards the same end goal. And unless somebody comes in and puts a ladder and changes their course and saves them, they're just going to walk off the cliff. And at the moment, David Moyes, to me, is not doing enough with this team to change the course of where those lemmings are going. And he's just allowing them to walk off the edge of the cliff, and that's reflecting in the results, in the performances. I thought Nottingham Forest were very, very good in this game. We talked on the podcast about them, actually, that if they can carry on with this front three of Callum Hudson-Odoi, Elanga and Awoniyi and keep them all fit and firing, they've got the basis of a decent strike force there. I really like Awoniyi. I think he's a fantastic number 9. He sort of reminds me of how Antonio used to be for West Ham. Not so much in recent years because he's advancing years. He's had various injury problems and form has dipped at various points. But Awoniyi is just, I mean, he rolled again like he wasn't even there at the weekend. That goal was just the most classic number 9 striker play you'll ever likely to see. And he's a real talent. And I think if he continues playing like that, it wouldn't surprise me if he has a few suitors for his services in the summer. But yeah, I'm not going to reflect too much on the game itself or do a deep dive into the game, but I want to talk about what's happened after the game and what happened during the game as well. And I was talking about how it's becoming toxic, and the reason I say that is because I'm now hearing that the divide between West Ham fans is becoming so strong between people who want Moyes in and people who want Moyes out, that fights are now breaking out within West Ham fans over this. Obviously, don't condone that sort of thing. The fact that you have an opinion that results in a fight is, to me, is embarrassing. I don't get what's wrong with society where you can't have two different opinions that don't end up resulting in violence, but whatever. But that's happening. And then to make matters worse, you've now got David Moyes, who is now taking swipes at the fan base in his post-match conferences and post-match interviews. For me, this never ends well, and it looks like we're heading down that path now. You know, we've seen it with Mourinho in most of the clubs he's managed, where it sort of like the beginning of the end is when the manager starts to lash out at fans and their expectations, or their comments, their banners at the game and that sort of thing. And say what you like about the banners. I mean, there's been a lot of people who are saying that they don't think that's fair to go to that extreme. But, you know, ultimately the West Ham fans are frustrated. They're not seeing what they like. Playing this brand of football is fine all the while you're getting results, because you can stomach it. You can stomach the poor performances, the style of football, if you're getting the results. And in the first half of the season, West Ham did that. They managed to pull out some great results, some exciting moments here and there, some patches of good football here and there. I'm not going to say that Moyes has never played attractive football, because in patches it has broken out. But sometimes you question whether that's the players doing that, or whether that's the manager's instructions. So yeah, it's all getting a bit toxic. And the biggest problem we have now with what David Moyes has said is that he's doing what the mainstream media are doing. It's like he's been listening to TalkSport and listening to the defence that they're making of him, which continues to baffle me, by the way. I don't know how many more bad performances that West Ham have to provide for the mainstream media like TalkSport to actually turn around and say, yeah, he probably isn't the right man for the job and he probably should go. Because they're still defending him. They're still saying that we're entitled and that we should stop with this trope of wanting him out, because we should be careful what we wish for. Oh no, West Ham fans wishing that they could be that club who can knock on the door of Europe every year but play attractive football. Oh God, how dare we, be that team that wishes that of their club. How dare we be that fan base that's so deluded that we want 6th place but playing better football. Oh God, what a travesty. Like, fuck off. Seriously, I don't understand why that is such a big ask. Why does Why does us being careful what we wish for, I'm going off on a trope here, why does being careful what we wish for mean that as soon as we get rid of Moyes and start playing a better brand of football, that's automatically going to coincide with us getting relegated? Because that is what the narrative is at the moment, is that people expect that if we then start trying to play a better brand of football, we're going to get relegated. And yeah, there might be an adjusting period, but you have to roll the dice. You've got to be ambitious. You've got to want and desire more. So yeah, I don't get that. But anyway, so David Moyes is continuing to dine out on the fact that when he came into the club, he saved us from relegation. We've had 3 years in Europe, 6th and 7th place finishes, etc., and a European trophy at the end of last season. Now, of course, none of that is untrue. That is all very true, and the vast majority of West Ham fans, I'm fairly certain, would stomach the rest of the season if they knew that Moyes was going to walk away. And even when he does walk away, there'll be a huge sigh of relief from obviously all the West Ham fans, because they'll be happy that he's walked away or that he's gone, and they'll be then hopeful for the future, even though there is obviously an element of risk involved in that. And look, we could end up being in a relegation fight next year. Who knows? But I think all the West Ham fans will also be very thankful for what Moyes has done. I know I am. Yeah, he saved us not once but twice from relegation. He came in, he's given us a couple of really good years. The COVID year was outstanding when Lingard came in because he played like prime Maradona for 6 months. But his refusal and stubborn nature, his refusal to change anything, both from a team lineup and a tactical point of view, is going to cost him his job. And I think that West Ham need a shake-up. So when Moyes comes out and he bangs the drum about guys should be thankful, we're doing all right, it's a real bitter pill to swallow when you keep hearing these same things over and over again from a manager that is really not performing very well at the moment, for him to just sort of effectively shrug his shoulders and say, well, it's pretty good at the moment, you guys should be thankful. So why should we be thankful of being 19th in the form table for the calendar year of 2024? We are 19th. We are awful at the moment. We scored 1 goal from open play. We have been absolutely dreadful for this calendar year. And I'm trying to rack my brains into thinking, is it just the European trophy that is causing this thing in people's minds? If you take that European trophy out of the equation, bearing in mind with the budget that we had and the teams we were playing, I personally think that actually if we hadn't have won that trophy, I think the general narrative would have been that it was a letdown, and that it was bad that West Ham didn't win the Conference League, because I think the expectation was that we were going to win it because of the teams that were in there. And the only team we played that was decent, as I said last week, was Fiorentina. And I think that they were probably the better team in the final. So I think the narrative would have been that it was a big missed opportunity if we didn't win that. So if we didn't win that, let's just humour me for a second. If we didn't win that trophy, I wonder if the narrative would be different. I wonder if it's the European trophy because of the scenes in London, the ecstasy, the amazing night that the fans had out in Prague and wherever you were watching, if you were in a pub or whatever over here. I wonder if that is really tainting people's opinions here. If we didn't have that trophy, I don't think the defence would be as strong as it is for David Moyes. I really don't. So yeah, I don't know how long that David Moyes expects to be able to dine out on this. It's at the moment, it's sounding like it's quite spiteful. I think that if he does walk away or if he is sacked, if things get really bad, I do think he will be sacked before the end of the season if this doesn't continue, because this is only going to get worse and worse, this level of toxicity. And when you got your manager now taking swipes at the fans, it usually only ends one way. I just wonder how long that he's going to continue to dine out on this. So I think that when he leaves, in the inevitable interviews and everything that will come after, I genuinely think he's going to continue down this same road. I don't think he'll admit to any of his own mistakes. I don't think he'll admit to any of his shortcomings and things that went wrong. I think, and even if he does, it'll be dismissive, because that's what he did at the weekend. He would talk about how bad the performance was, but then he'll caveat with the whole, but things are all right. You can't say negative and then spin it into a positive every time. It just doesn't work, and it doesn't wash with West Ham fans. So there is a big problem coming in the summer, of course, with the squad. The toxicity levels are increasing week to week, and we've got Brentford next, and Brentford are historically not a good team for us. They're one of our many bogey teams, and it's at the London Stadium. I think at this point it would be better if it was an away game, because 60-odd thousand fans at the London Stadium watching us sit behind the ball, which we're going to do. Brentford know this, the world knows this, everyone knows this. The players are losing faith in it, and I think that Brentford could turn up and beat us, and if they do, and we don't put in a good performance, I would not want to be out there. And on that point, where are the players' heads at right now? Calvin Phillips, I mean, the experiment is looking more and more disastrous as the weeks go on. I don't really know where the salvation comes here, because it feels like he did put himself about a bit at the weekend and he did try, but the 2 yellow cards were just schoolboy, absolutely schoolboy, and he's now getting criticism left, right and centre. The whole Pep Guardiola comments are resurfacing in the media about him before Guardiola's even having to comment on them, apologising for what he said, and this is looking like a massive failure. And apparently behind the scenes it was David Moyes who was banging the drum to get Calvin Phillips signed. It was him that wanted to get Phillips over the line. Stuyden, Moyes, the owners didn't want Phillips, but they relented and gave in to Moyes, and then Stuyden managed to negotiate a discount on what Man City were asking for. So they bent the knee, so to speak, to David Moyes and gave him what he wanted, and it's not working out. So it's kind of another nail in the coffin, if you like, if this doesn't work out for how he wants. So yes, and Tim Stuyden, I mean, that's another subject for another day, but there's rumours of him now wanting to see a change in manager because he's tired of not having sort of the more control on things, because David Moyes still just puts his foot down all the time. I don't know if that's also a comment on David Sullivan, I don't know. So yeah, West Ham are going to continue to be the big news story every weekend, because everybody is watching, waiting for things to fail. And actually, from the mainstream media point of view, they're going to become so intolerable and insufferable. If we beat Brentford and put in a half sensible performance, you know what it's going to be. You know that mainstream media and TalkSport is all good, just going to be full of people going, "We told you so. We told you it was just a blip. We told you that everything was okay. We told you that you should stick with Moyes." You know it's going to be that. And one result, even 2 results, 3 results, is not going to change his style of football. And if we win the game, I don't know, let's say we win 1-0, 2-0, it doesn't really matter. They will look at the scoreline and assume that we played well and that therefore David Moyes is the right man for the job. They will not watch the 90 minutes. They will not see the stats. They will not have a feel for how the game was going. And that's all they'll comment on. So, yeah, I went through a lot there. Have a look at last week's video if you want to see my overall feelings on the style of play and why West Ham fans are so annoyed. But yeah, that's where we're at the moment with West Ham. It's becoming toxic. It's becoming a real problem in the fan base, with the divide that it's causing. And David Sullivan needs to get on top of this quickly, because the longer this goes on, the more likely that this is going to damage our reputation, both domestically and in the European leagues, for when it comes to recruiting players, which, by the way, we're going to have to do a lot of in the summer, with the number of players leaving or have left, that should leave, contracts expiring, age, etc, etc. We have a very old squad. For a team that spent 500 million on players in the last couple of years, we do have quite the old squad. So anyway, that's enough talk about West Ham. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think. We had some really good comments last week. So yeah, let me know again what your thoughts are after the Forest result. Right then, we're going to move on. We're going to talk about Manchester United for a moment, because having talked about West Ham, it feels right that we should talk about a club that's sort of heading a bit more in a positive direction. And it feels like at the moment that Manchester United are doing just that. I mean, on the podcast, Dan is a Man United fan, and we love to rip him, and we've spent a good number of years doing that because of how bad United have been for the last few years. But there's one particular player that I want to focus on, who feels like he's been the part of the catalyst for the good news stories that have been coming out of Manchester United recently, and that's Kobbie Mainoo, because I've been so impressed with him. He's a player whose age defies belief in terms of how confident he is, how calm on the ball he is, and actually his general ball skills, I think they've gone a bit under the radar. Like the way in which the football just kind of sticks to his feet, no matter what he's doing, where he's going, he always seems to find his way out of trouble. And dare I say it, there was a Spanish player that used to play for Barcelona who went by the name of Iniesta. And I'm not saying for 1 minute that he's as good as Iniesta or that he's going to be as good as Iniesta, but these were the sort of qualities that people were picking up on with Iniesta when he was a very, very young talent at Barcelona. Now, obviously, the career trajectory for Mainu, look, I hope it goes that way, and I'm not saying that it is. I'm not saying, before you all jump down my throats and saying, I can't believe he's just compared Mainu to Iniesta. I'm not. I'm just saying that there's a few similarities there. And from an England fan point of view, that's very, very exciting because it doesn't seem to be being talked about very much, but in 4 months' time, we've got a major European tournament, a major international European tournament in Euro 2024. And at the moment, England's midfield is a problem, in my opinion, because we've only got Declan Rice. That's it. Like, Calvin Phillips is an absolute... He's on another planet in terms of how close he is to getting in there. Jordan Henderson shouldn't be anywhere near that. Unfortunately, he probably will be, as will Calvin Phillips. James Ward-Prowse has fallen off a cliff as well, so his name, even though everyone was talking about how on earth is he not in the squad earlier on in the season, there'll be no questions about whether he should or shouldn't be. He shouldn't in the squad. Who else have we got in there that can come in there and do a job in there? I mean, Conor Gallagher, I guess, could be deployed in a similar role. He's been playing quite well, so he's a consideration. But what the point I'm kind of making is that Kobbie Mainoo has a real opportunity of getting into that squad. I don't necessarily think he'll be in the starting 11, but I certainly think he should be in that squad at the moment. And the potential opportunity for England to actually just bin off the fact they always play two in front of the back four would be quite nice to see them just do it one with Rice. Play Rice and then maybe play Bellingham and maybe Cole Palmer or Maddison in front, whatever, rather than always playing that double pivot. That would be quite nice. This is Southgate we're talking about after all. He'll probably still just pick Henderson and Phillips and ignore Mainoo. But anyway, back to Manchester United. I think that putting my neutral hat on for a second, I think it's quite nice to actually see United coming out of the back of a really sodden few years of negative stories. They had obviously a decent first season under Ten Hag. It started off really well. It then turned sour again for a little while. But for a change, there's no negativity around the club, particularly. The Jim Ratcliffe stuff, the new, Dan Ashworth from Newcastle that they're trying to get hold of. It just screams to me that there's the starting formulations of a plan with Manchester United, and it feels like that's the first time you can say that in a long time. Obviously, the proof will be in the pudding. We're at the very, very early stages of that. But the very fact that they're trying to get good footballing people into the club is a really positive first step, because it doesn't feel like they've had that before for a long time. Obviously, you've got rid of certain players who were causing problems. Obviously Ronaldo was a problem. Unfortunately, it all ended very badly for him. Sancho was a problem. That's been and gone. You've had the Anthony story in the paper about the supposed sexual assault charges and stuff. I think were dropped. I believe they were dropped. That's kind of gone away, and he's not really playing at the moment anyway, so he's out of the spotlight. So the only player that's left that could potentially upset the apple cart here is Marcus Rashford. Now, we've all seen the video of him at the weekend against Luton, the pressing of the ball. It was late on in the game. It was only in the 80th minute. As bad as it looks, and it is bad, is it being blown out of proportion? I'm trying to think. Is it being blown out of proportion just because it's Rashford? Because he is the target of the moment for Manchester United, isn't he? Because of the other stuff that's going on. And I'm trying to ratify in my mind as to whether I think it's justified to go at him as heavy as people have. Now, on the one hand, he's paid an awful lot of money. He's one of the big earners at Manchester United. He's been there a long time. He's an experienced professional. He's an experienced international player. He should be putting in more effort. That was, for me, as defending goes, that's inexcusable. To just jog around like he did. If I'm another Manchester United player, someone like Kobbie Mainoo perhaps, or even Casemiro, because he demands a lot, I would be absolutely furious with Rashford for that level of effort that he's putting in. I don't care what minute of the game it is in. Luton were on the ascendancy in a way at that moment in the game. They were trying to find an equaliser. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that Ross Barkley was on the ball. He goes round Marcus Rashford. Marcus Rashford does that defending, that style, that real lack of effort. If Ross Barkley then goes past Rashford and finds a key pass and they score from it and they draw the game, what would the reaction have been to Rashford if that had been the case? He would have been absolutely lynched. I'm sure of it, and rightly so. I don't think you can defend that. I think that's indefensible. And I think Rashford is the last problem player that Ten Hag needs to deal with, one way or the other. And I'd love to hear Manchester United fans' take on this. Do you think that Rashford's time is up at United? Do you think that he has become stale? Do you think he needs a new challenge? Do you think he's good enough? Like, what's your thoughts on this? Because it feels like there has been little flashes in the pan, little moments where he's performed and scored important goals. But I think that when you counterbalance that with the lack of professionalism, the stuff recently in Ireland, where he didn't turn up for training, or he was late back from training and then he was pictured in a club in Ireland or whatever it was. You've got this lack of effort. You've got his general body language at times isn't very good. I just wonder if he is interested. Is that the right way to put it? I don't know. I don't know whether he needs a new challenge. And there's been rumours that PSG are looking at him as a potential replacement for Mbappe. I mean, in my opinion, that is well, most people down from Mbappe is going to be a step down, but you know, that feels like that's not going to be a good acquisition for PSG at this moment, unless Rashford goes there and reinvents it, and he sort of reinvigorates himself, rather, not reinvigorates. But Ten Hag has obviously, he's taken a lot of flack over the last couple of years. He's had to deal with some incredibly tough situations. It always felt like there was a fire to put out somewhere for Ten Hag, and I think if he can put out this fire in Rashford and maybe light a fire under him as well, it would feel like Manchester United are finally on a straight path. You know, there'd be no more hurdles in the way of a bit of progress here for United. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see in the summer what their transfer plan is, because there are one or two players in that team that are getting on a bit. Casemiro's legs look like they're beginning to let out on him a little bit, picking up more and more yellows. He's not as effective defensively as he once was. Still very, very good on the ball, but maybe not as effective defensively as he once was. Got a perfect replacement in Kobe Mainu there and then, but they might have to dip into the market to bring in somebody else. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do in the transfer market. Do they, do what they do before and pay massive money for big name players, or do they try and have a bit more of a plan? Do they formulate a little bit more of a strategy with who they're looking for, what type of player they go for, and stop just going for the big names that cost stupid amounts of money? I suspect it'll be the latter, because what they've done before hasn't worked, and I don't think that Jim Ratcliffe and Dan Ashworth, if he does come in, are going to be oblivious to that fact. So it's going to be interesting. And I think if you're a Manchester United fan right now, I think there's a little bit of cautious optimism there. You know, they've had periods in the last couple of years where things have gone really well for a short period and then they've fallen down again. But I think the fact that you've got someone like Kobe Mainu, he's just lighting up the world at the moment. He's been fantastic. Harry Maguire has turned his form around quite a lot in the last 6 months. The fact that no one's really talking about him is probably testament to the fact that he is playing well. Onana, he's still not perfect, but he's had some better performances recently. And then, of course, you got Højlund up front, who's just turned into a different striker. I mean, the 2 goals he scored at the weekend, whether you think he did or didn't mean the second goal, that goal going in is just symptomatic of a player that's currently in his element, in his prime confidence levels and ability levels. 2 months ago, neither of those goals go in. The second one probably just hits him and goes wide, or hits him in the bollocks. The first one he doesn't score. He probably makes the wrong decision. He may not have even been there in the first place chasing the ball down. But when you're full of confidence like that, those are the sorts of goals that you score. And I think that United fans should be quite excited by the prospect of a young kid like Højlund being in a place in his career where he's only going to get better. So, was it 7 goals in his last 6, or whatever it is a great return for a man who spent the first half of the season not scoring. So there's a lot of positives at United at the moment. I think they should be cautiously optimistic. I'd love to know what United fans think of things right now in their club. Let me know in the comments down below again. But yeah, as a neutral looking at them, I think they're on the rise. I genuinely do. I think that previous times where they've had good moments, it felt like they were riding their luck a little bit. There was always stuff going on in the background at the club. There was always noise outside of what was going on the pitch that could cause a distraction, and sometimes that came home and came home to roost with them a little bit. But it feels like there's less of that now. It feels like there's less distractions off the pitch. And I'm hoping that that's, from their point of view, that's going to mean that they don't fall back into those bad habits again. The only thing that worries me is the way in which they relinquish control on games. In that game against Luton at the weekend, the first 10 minutes or so, it was the most one-sided game of football I've seen for a while. They were so dominant that it felt like Man United could make this any score that they want. And then Luton kind of get a goal out of nothing. And then it switches and Man United lose all control on the game, and Luton are in the ascendancy. And United have to stop doing that. They have to be able to get control back of a football match. They have to calm themselves down, not panic when they get a goal against them or whatever. And they've done that on a number of occasions this year, most notably in the Champions League, of course, that they were incapable of holding on to leads. So that is something they're going to have to address. But yeah, other than that, I think it's pretty positive. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you think, and let's move on to our final topic of the video. All right, it's time to talk about the title race, because it is shaping up to be one of the most exciting title races in recent memory. We've got 3 teams separated by 2 points, I think now. Let me just double check the league table after Manchester City's win last night against Brentford. I'm pretty sure is 2 points. Yes, indeed there are. Liverpool 57, Manchester City 56, Arsenal on 55. Goal difference 35 for Liverpool, 32 for City, and 36 for Arsenal. I am, as a neutral, I am absolutely over the moon at the prospect of what this title fight is going to look like, hopefully in about 10 games time. I would love the situation to be about the same as it is now, with like 2 or 3 games to go. As a neutral who does not have a sword in this fight at all, this would be absolute box office. And as an advert for the Premier League, I think it would be absolutely fantastic, because we've talked in the last year or two that Man City's dominance over everyone else is not a good thing for English football. We often talk about the French league, the Spanish league, and certainly the Scottish league as a sort of one-horse race all the time. And I know that's not always true, especially out in Spain at the moment, where Real Madrid and Barcelona have not been at the peak of their powers now for a number of years. But having one team just kind of win the league every single season does fly in the face of the fact that we like to tell the world that the Premier League is the most competitive league in the world. And it may still be, but when you've got a team like Man City who continue to just win the league every single year, it's not a good look. So if we can, I'm not saying that if Man City win the league this year, it's going to be any less, whether it's going to feed into that narrative or not. But the very fact that they are going to have to work bloody hard for it is a real positive, because it shows that they can be got at. And actually, as it happens right now, I personally think that Man City, out of the 3 of those teams, are looking the most shaky. They've managed to find wins in games. They weren't particularly brilliant against Brentford last night by all accounts. They certainly weren't that great against Everton, and their first shot on target in the 70th minute from Haaland was their first goal. Arsenal are on the rise. They're peaking at exactly the right time in the season. Will they use last season's drop off as fuel and motivation? Have they learnt from those mistakes, that time where they really fell off? And it might suit them to chase Arsenal. Don't forget that Arsenal were in front last year and being chased, which is a very different thing to do than to be the person chasing. So that might suit them to be in this position a little bit. And for most people, Arsenal are the 3rd favourites in this title race, which again probably suits them. And Liverpool have just got this, cunning way of just being able to, find results where they need to. And I suppose all 3 of them are doing that to a degree. But Liverpool, out of them and Arsenal, Liverpool have obviously got the most experience, both at coaching level and at player level, of being able to see through a title challenge. I don't know. I don't know. I couldn't pick right now which one of those 3. Now, my brain says to me you have to go with City, just because of the fact they've got so much experience in that team. They know how to win trophies. They know how to get through adversity in these situations and fight their way through it and get the trophy at the end. So I still think that you have to class Man City as favourites. But I think that from a defensive point of view, against Chelsea on Sunday or Saturday, they look vulnerable at the back, Man City, at the moment. And I just wonder whether in those games we got coming up, I'm pretty sure Man City have got both Liverpool and Arsenal to play before the end of the season. Let me just go ahead and double check that. They've got a Manchester derby coming up on the 3rd of March. That could be huge. Man United are on the rise. Yeah, they've got Liverpool on the 10th of March and then Arsenal on the 31st of March. March is a pivotal month for Man City. Just listen to these fixtures for Man City. On the 3rd of March, they're at home to United. That's a massive game. They are then away to Liverpool on the 10th. Then they're away at Brighton, and Brighton are a funny team. They could easily turn up and beat Man City, or they could roll over and get smashed about 5-0. And then 2 weeks later, I'm assuming there must be FA Cup or something like that between those, or maybe internationals. They then got Arsenal on the last game week of March at home. So March is a really pivotal month for Manchester City. We may, by the end of March, we may have a real feeling for where Man City are in this title race, and maybe potentially Liverpool and Arsenal as well. If Liverpool and Arsenal turn up and don't lose to Man City, I think that puts both of those teams in a real ascendancy, on the assumption that they can stay consistent against everybody else. I mean, there's so many ways to look at it. I mean, I'm hearing myself say this now, and I'm almost questioning myself as I say it. And I think that's the beauty of it, because I'm literally trying to convince myself that, Arsenal need to beat Man City or Man City need to beat Liverpool, but because it's so close, it doesn't. Like, it actually, as much as it is an important game, maybe psychologically, if Man City were to lose against Arsenal and Arsenal were to win, it doesn't matter, because all Arsenal got to do is lose against somebody else, which can happen, of course. It can happen to anybody, and all of a sudden it's done. Like, that win has been undone. So I don't know. Psychologically, yes, it's massively important, and we like to make a big thing about title chasing teams when they play each other, how big of a game it is. It's a bit like the sort of like, it's the opposite of the relegation 6-pointer, isn't it? When in reality it is just one game, it is just 3 points. So yeah, there's going to be lots of twists and turns in the title race before the end of the season. I'm here for it. If you had to ask me who I want to win the league, I don't really know. I'm not massive fans of Arsenal. Obviously, the London rivalry there. We had quite a lot of stick from Arsenal fans for the Declan Rice transfer, but a small part of me would like to see that Declan Rice go there and win a trophy, just because I did love him as a player. I know you should never really wish success on players that leave your club. You wouldn't want him to be successful, but like, he was better than West Ham at the end of the day, and he's gone to Arsenal, made a massive difference. So I wouldn't be completely against seeing Arsenal win the league. I suppose as a fairy tale ending, it would be nice to see Liverpool win it as that fairy tale ending for Jurgen Klopp. That obviously gives them a lot of extra motivation from a team perspective anyway. Man City would probably be my least favourite team to win the 3, just because they've won it so many times, and it would be nice to see somebody else win it. But I still, in my opinion, make them favourites for now, just because of that experience that they've got of winning trophies and finding results where they didn't deserve to win, as we talked about earlier. Difficult to call, very, very exciting. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this all plays out. March is going to be an incredibly exciting month. I mean, even if you don't agree with me, that you think perhaps there is more to read into those games where Manchester City are playing Arsenal and Liverpool, and you think that actually those games mean more than what I'm suggesting they do. Either way, just the box office nature of those games, the excitement that's going to revolve around those games is going to be massive. The crowd are going to be bang up for it. There's going to be a load of hype on TV about it. I just hope that the games live up to expectations and they're not like drab 0-0s where they sort of cancel each other out. That would be so anticlimactic. That would be amazing, crazy, that if it ended up like that. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. I'm assuming that people watching this video are going to have various allegiances to one team or the other for one reason or the other, and obviously that means you're going to want one team to do better than the other. But yeah, let me know what you think. Is this title race a good thing for the Premier League? Is it good to have this level of competition? Does it reinforce the fact that the Premier League is the best league in the world? Or actually, does the fact that we don't have one team running away with it, does that mean that Man City have actually weakened? Does it mean that actually we don't have a dominant force like we thought we did? I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. I'm just throwing out ideas for talking points and stuff like that. So yeah, in next week's digest, I'm going to look at the other end of the table in detail. It's been horrendous seasons for Sheffield United and Burnley in particular, but we're going to take a look at the other end of the table next week in the digest. Hopefully there won't be anything to talk about with West Ham. Hopefully I can have a week off and give you guys a week off from talking about them. So yeah, thank you very much, everyone. If there are any other topics, in fact, that if you want me to talk about and cover and get my opinions on, then do let me know in the comments as well. And as I said earlier in the video, make sure you give our podcast a listen to. It's available on all good podcast apps. You should be able to get it at 6 o'clock ish every morning on a Tuesday. So yeah, I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on it. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next week.